Dere Coquinaria. What did the Romans like to eat? The Apicius cookbook, known as the Dere Coquinaria or Dere Culinarian, on the subject of cooking, is a catalogue of Roman cookery tips and recipes thought to have been gathered in the 5th century AD. Let's remember, they didn't have tomatoes then, they didn't have potatoes then, they didn't have turkey then, corn. All this was brought from, or sweet potatoes, this was all brought from the new land of America. So what did they eat? It may have even been gathered earlier, but the language in which it's written is closer to Vulgate Latin rather than classical Latin. It may be that classical recipes were adopted by later communities, and this would mean that what we have here is an authentic list of recipes from the height of the Roman Empire. Apicius's cookbook. The book itself has been often attributed to Salius Apicius, though it's unknown who actually collected all these recipes or wrote them. Of the 2 manuscripts that still exist, one of them is headed with the words Apicae, and that is as close as we can get. Some individual recipes are listed as authored by Apicius, but there is no specific author overall. It may be that Apicius, to which the manuscript refers as Marcus Gavius Apicius, who was a Roman gourmet living under the reign of Tiberius Caesar in the 1st century. However, it's much more likely that the many recipes have been adapted over time, perhaps from as early as the 1st century. Many of the recipes include an ingredient named silphium, a plant that was used in medicine, seasoning, and perfume, which became extinct in the 1st century. Intriguingly, this indicates that an even earlier origin is possible. However, the respected food scholar Bruno Lorieux is under the impression that the surviving version only dates from the 5th century, and this was when the Roman Empire came to an end in the West. In fact, he is one of the opinion that the history of de la Coquinaria belongs to the Middle Ages. The book itself is organized in a Greek fashion and resembles a modern cookbook. It has 10 books within it that could be characterized as chapters. And these books are divided much as you would expect. There are those that deal with meat and the animal itself, Sarcoptes, the butcher, Aeroptes, the bird, Tetrapus, the quadruple four-legged animals, and Thalassa, the sea animals, that is seafood. There is Osprion, which means beans, which is a Greek word for beans, which handles pulses and legumes. There is Kepuros, which deals with gardening. Kipuros means the gardening, things that you grow in your garden, vegetable gardens. And the Halius, the fisherman, Aliis, that's again a Greek word. There are 2 books on food preparation and appreciation. Epimelis, that is diligent. Polytelis, meaning luxurious, sumptuous. And there is the Encyclopedia Pandects. The food of de la Coquinaria. The food that is described is a great insight into the dietary habits of those people living in the Roman Empire around the Mediterranean. It should be noted that the recipes are garnered towards the wealthiest people and that many of the ingredients were exotic, even for those living in the heart of the empire. For example, flamenco is used in several recipes. Yeah, the flamenco bird. Not all of the recipes were rich and exotic, though. Some could be seen on menus or in the homes of today. For example, hot kid or lamb stew. Put the pieces of meat into a pan, finely chop an onion and coriander, ground the pepper, cumin, garum, oil, and wine. Cook, turn on to a shallow pan and thicken with wheat starch. And if you take a lamb, you should add the contents of the mortar while the meat is still raw. And if it's a kid, add it while it's cooking. Basically how we would have a lamb stew today. Interestingly, there are many different versions of the book. There is an abbreviated epitome called Apici Excepta a Vinidario, like a pocket cookbook, and by the illustrious man called Vinidarius. It was made as late as the Carolingian era in the 9th century. The author of the book may have been a Goth, however. Little else is known about him, and it survives as a single document written in the Greek and Latin style, and despite its title, it is not solely about Apicius or derived from its text. There are editions that did not feature in Apicius, and likely the book was not massively influenced by the original, as there are huge amounts of differences between the materials. There have been many editions found in various places across Italy, such as Milan in 1498 and Venice in 1500. Between 1498 and 1936, there were around 14 editions found in the Latin text, although it was not widely translated. It was first translated into Italian before being translated into French and German in the 20th century. It was first translated into English in 1939 under the title Cookery and Dining in Imperial Rome. Other Roman cuisine. Throughout the Roman Empire, there were great changes in the cuisine of the empire. Their diet was affected by the political changes of the empire, of course, and its relation with foreigners. Early in the empire, there was little change in Rome cuisine, being the poor and between the poor and the rich. However, when the empire grew larger and richer, there was a disparity that grew. Archaeologists have discovered through grave goods where Romans were eating, and foods such as figs, chickpeas, and small fish were a staple of their diet. However, there were many plants involved in their diet, such as dill, lentils, and other nuts. Traditionally, breakfast in the Roman Empire was called iantaculum and was served at dawn from midday to early afternoon. They ate cena. The main meal of the day, which was usually eaten in the evening, was called vesperna. However, as the years went on, cena became more important and grew larger in size, though in the countryside it remained largely the same to match the rhythms of manual labor and demand. Among the upper classes, the Romans began to schedule business obligations in the morning before a trip to the baths. Much of the food consumed during the height of the Roman Empire was imported in. For example, the city received ham from Belgium, garum from Mauritania, game from Tunisia, flowers from Egypt, and oysters from Brittany. Many of the staples of modern Italian cooking can be seen in the ancient Roman diet. Pliny the Elder discussed over 30 varieties of olives, 40 kinds of fruit including pears and figs, as well as a variety of vegetables. Carrots of different colors were eaten, but surprisingly, orange was not often consumed. Garlic, cabbage, broccoli, lettuce, endives, onion, and radishes have all been found to be eaten. However, not everything that was eaten in the ancient world has stayed around. Many staples of the modern Italian diet had not been discovered by Romans until much later, and as such are noticeably missing. And this is by Kurt Redman on Historic Mysteries. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.